We have the head coach of BBL here joining us, Pal. Firstly, commiserations on your loss today. It was a rough
Thank
loss
you.
for sure. And I think that said, BBL's journey throughout all of stage two has been extremely inspiring. And I think that there were a lot of games that you guys had incredible performances in. So the first question I wanted to ask you is, how did you like, I think there's been a lot of difference in how the team plays between stage two and the rest of the year, stage one and kickoff. And I feel like a lot of that can be attributed to you taking over as head coach and stuff like that. So how has the year been for you personally?
Very long, very long, very exhausting. Um, I think I got a lot more freedom than perhaps most assistant coaches get earlier in the year, where I played more of a strategic coach role for the team throughout kickoff and throughout stage one as well. So not much has particularly changed in terms of my role going into stage two. However, I've just been able to take on more of the logistical and people management side of things and have a little bit more freedom to lead in the way that I would like to after we made that roster change.
Mm-hmm. And talking about roster changes, I think that you also had some additional backup coming in the form of coaching ahead of stage two. So, how would you say that has kind of impacted the team and stuff?
Oh, it's made such a big difference because both Thinky and Zeiss have exceptional specific abilities that I really, really value. Thinky has been brilliant at working, especially with Levin in particular. He should really be credited with the development of Levin throughout this second stage, and he was able to do a lot of the sort of small, detailed, dirty work and work with players on an individual level, whilst I took care of more of the macro strategy and the strat books and running the training schedule, etc. And Zeiss has been a fantastic asset for me for helping to add to our strategic depth, helping to constantly analyze and have a second strategic eye on a lot of the stuff that we do, especially the new stuff that we created all the way throughout the sort of the latter half of stage two. Basically, the way it worked was myself and Zeiss would sort of take the lead on a lot of the general macro strategy, and then Thinky and Yampi would take a lot more of the sort of the micro, the individual stuff with people and trying to develop that side. But at the same time, both sort of pairs would overlap with one another, and we would always be constantly involved. So having that coaching staff of three plus a really, really competent leader in my GL in Elias has just made the biggest difference for me, and it's been an incredible pleasure to work with all three of them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, I think that a lot of the games you could, like I said, kind of see the difference in how well prepared the team seemed to be for the matchups that they had, and I think that your whole upper bracket run was extremely confident and dominant. So I wanted to ask you, like, how did you guys prep for that? Was it more mental, or was it like a lot of WOD review and anti-stratting? What was kind of like the secret sauce?
It was very mental. The secret sauce is the game Golf with Your Friends, replacing a lot of practice time with lots of rounds of golf with your friends on an almost daily basis.
Who won?
Um,
Who won the
we
most?
we spoke about. Sorry.
Who won the most?
Who won the most? Me, definitely. No, I think Sociable and Yampi on his day are probably the best two players for sure. Magnum was the worst. No, I think we got to a point throughout the sort of middle of stage two where we'd really found what worked for us in the new meta. We knew that the players understood everything they needed to. We could see from practice they were able to execute what they understood to a super high level, and it then just became about maintaining that and having that mental resilience through into the later half of the season to keep performing and delivering and really wanting to win and having the energy to do that when it counted. So I had a little phrase that I said to the rest of my staff, which was positivity is greater than protocols. There's no point hammering away on loads of more depth to a point where people can't remember it, when actually just a bit of a more positive environment around the place between everybody as people will actually often get you more results than anything else. And up until the last 36 hours, it did exactly that.
Who would you say is the most positive person on the team, and who would you say is the most likely to mold?
Um, I think you'd have to give the most positive to Yampi for sure. I think he is not only the one that expresses it the most, but I think the one that through his experience is the most resilient. Um, and he constantly has that energy to pick himself back up again, which is what makes him such a brilliant leader. Everyone else has the ability to be positive, but he comes back again and again and again. And in terms of molding, no one is particularly negative in this team, and that's what's made it work. No one is out there to mold or to flame or to be frustrated at any points that they should not be. Um, Outside of practice and outside of the games, Magnum's great about complaining about everything, mostly his health. But in terms of in a natural team environment, when there's work to be done, I'm pretty happy that actually these guys are um, not unnecessarily negative.
That's probably very nice to have as a coach, I'm sure. Talking
Absolutely.
about the last 36 hours and today's game. Of course, it was a pretty rough series. I watched like the last two maps, and yeah, I wanted to ask you, instead of just what went wrong, what do you think was like the biggest, because it seemed like GIANTX got the momentum in the first map and you guys just couldn't recover from that. And this didn't seem to be an issue you had in previous series. So what was kind of the problem today in that regard?
Unfortunately, on we lost a game that we were in a very strong position to win yesterday, and that always hurts. But I think we recovered well from that fact. Unfortunately, we then had external mental challenges to deal with that even though we thought we'd then got over, we were then hit with more. And unfortunately, today, when they first built up that momentum, we perhaps just weren't resilient enough because we'd had to deal with so much already. The boys, just at this point in the season, this point in the last 36 hours, had just been through a little bit too much, unfortunately. And I wasn't able to do enough to help them through that.
It has been a very long road, like you said. I remember the first question I asked you, and that was your answer. And I think that resilience has truly been one of the hallmarks of this team, at least for me from a viewer standpoint. So it's been really a pleasure to watch. And I hope, I don't know if you have an answer for this, but what's up next for BBL? Are you guys going to stick together for the off season? Put a start for prepping for next year already? Like, do you have any plans for
Oh
that?
well, I mean, it's like if that depends. I mean, my contract's up, so I'm hoping they would offer me something else. So I don't know what my future is, but look, I think the biggest thing is what you've got here is a fantastic team, a fantastic group of people that have bonded in a completely unexpected way, and that's something special. And they should look for that in whatever they end up doing next year.
Why would you use the word unexpected there, if I can ask?
Because we were a bunch of rejects and misfits that were rejected or not or forgotten about from other teams in this league, and everybody came together as the last team to be built in the off season, and were built around this one idea that everybody believes that they are not only good enough to participate in the league and that they have earned their spot in this league, but instead that they can actually go on and do something quite special in this competition. And I think united by that one belief in themselves, we've managed to make it quite a long way. So I'm very proud of the five boys for being able to achieve that. Um, and yeah, that's something very special in itself.
I think that's a sentiment that actually I feel like a lot of people would really appreciate. So I think that you guys have definitely managed to set, if not like get to champions, which I'm sure was your eventual goal. I think that there was some really great Valorant that was played, and I personally really liked your game against Fnatic. I just gotta say that. So, you know,
Thank you very much.
yeah, and I really like you said, I hope that we do get to see this team stick together because I really think that it was pretty fantastic. And if you could change one thing at all this year, what would it have been?
There's not much I would change. Um, I think that's a very hard question to answer. I think I might have an answer for it maybe further down the line when I've had more time to reflect.
Hmm.
Um, but I would always wish I knew more about the guys, the men that I get to work with earlier than I did. Um, but perhaps, yeah, I would have liked to have made some of the changes that we eventually made later on in the season earlier on. But we had to learn certain things to be in order to make those changes. That's all.
Got it. And any final shout outs? Anybody you want to say something to?
Um, yeah, I think so. I think to the five boys that have had me work them all the way throughout the year, and they have gone and done it and trusted me every single time. To Thinky and to Zeiss, who have stepped in halfway through the season into my system, into my ways of doing things, and just without question done everything and more that I could have ever asked for them and just given it absolutely everything. To Chiwa, who's playing on Job Life in Tier 2, for the massive impact he had on the culture of this team when it was being built at the beginning and the love that he's always showed us. For Vac, for being there at the beginning of the season and kickoff, for winning a 1v2 clutch against Fnatic on Split after a massive comeback, for being a very special part of this group. And to Sinan and to Dahan as the two managers of this team. They have given everything. They have sacrificed personally massively just so that those of us based in Berlin could continue doing the job on the day-to-day basis. And I think that whole group of us that have worked on this project throughout this year, I think every single person that I've mentioned deserves a lot of love from everybody that thinks that there's something inspiring about what we've managed to achieve this year.
That was really well said. And yeah, thank you for your time. And I really hope that we get to see more of you and the boys next year because it was a damn good show. I gotta say that.
Thank you very much.